You know, there are moments in life that define you. Moments that peel everything back, the job titles, the bills, the daily grind, and show you what's truly underneath, what you're really made of. And more importantly, who's really listening. My name is Michael, and for 49 years and 11 months of my life, I thought I understood faith. I went to church on Sundays, said my prayers before meals. It was a part of my landscape, comforting like a familiar old chair. But it wasn't until I was 50, strapped into seat 17A on a flight from Chicago to Denver, that I learned what faith truly is. I learned what happens when human hope runs out and something else, something divine, steps in. This isn't just a story about a scary flight. This is the story of the day I stopped believing in God as a concept, and started knowing Him as a presence. The day Mother Mary didn't just feel like a painting in a church, but a real, breathing comfort in the seat next to me. But before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Pause right now. Type HOPE in the comments and tell me what city you're watching from. Let's create a chain of faith across the globe. Let's light up that comment section with a worldwide testament. Go on, I'll wait. Thank you. Seeing those names, from Dallas to Dublin, from Manila to Minneapolis, it reminds me we're never alone in this. We're a family. Now, if you're feeling that pull, that curiosity, I have another request. Please take a second to subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. By subscribing, you're not just watching a video, you're becoming part of our community, a sanctuary online where we explore these moments of grace, these miracles big and small. You won't miss our next journey into life's deepest mysteries. It was a Tuesday. A completely ordinary Tuesday. I was heading to Denver for a meeting. The kind of mid-level business trip I'd done 100 times. The plane was a workhorse Boeing 737, packed with folks like me, salespeople, a few families heading on vacation, students with their headphones on. I had my briefcase, my tablet full of presentations I was barely prepared for, and a mild dread of the small talk I'd have to make. The first hour was utterly unremarkable. The drone of the engines, the faint smell of coffee from the galley. I was staring out at a sea of cotton ball clouds, the sun brilliant and glaring above them, thinking about profit margins. My faith that day? It was tucked away. An afterthought. Maybe I'd say a rote God willing later. That was it. Then the captain's voice came on. Calm, professional. But there was a new word in his sentence. A word that changes the air in a cabin immediately. Turbulence. He said we'd be encountering some moderate turbulence ahead and asked the flight attendants to prepare the cabin. The seatbelt sign dinged on. A mild buzz of annoyance went through the plane. People tightened their belts, stowed laptops. No big deal. We've all been through bumps. But this was different. It didn't start as bumps. It started as a sudden, violent drop. My stomach didn't just lurch. It felt like it stayed up there while the rest of me fell 50 feet. My tablet hit the ceiling. Drinks cart in the aisle literally leapt into the air and crashed down. A collective, sharp gasp, a sound of pure surprise, sucked the air out of the cabin. And then the plane started to shake. Not a vibration. A deep, groaning, shuddering shake like a giant had us in its fist and was rattling us. The clouds outside weren't peaceful anymore. They were a gray, churning wall. Lightning flashed, not in the distance but right outside the window, illuminating the cabin in a terrifying, silent strobe. The captain came back on. His voice was tighter now. Flight attendants, please be seated immediately. No more moderate. The plane dropped again. This time screams. Real raw screams of terror. A woman a few rows ahead of me began to sob, a high, keening sound that cut through the roar. Her husband was clutching her hand, his face white as paper, mouthing what looked like, "It's okay," but his eyes were wide with the same terror we all felt. This is where the mind goes in a place like that. It's not even coherent fear. It's a primal, animal understanding that you are in a metal tube 6 miles above the earth, and the forces outside do not care about your meeting in Denver. They do not care about your mortgage, your dreams, your family. I looked at my hands. They were gripping the armrests so hard my knuckles were bone white. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. I thought of my wife, Sarah, at home probably watching TV. I thought of my son, Ben, at college. The regret wasn't even about big things. It was that I hadn't called him last night when I'd thought about it. That I'd rushed out the door without really kissing Sarah goodbye. Chaos is a funny thing. It has a sound. It's the cacophony of crying, of prayers muttered in frantic bursts, of the plane structure groaning in protest, of the wind howling like a demon past the windows. A man across the aisle had pulled out the safety information card and was reading it, his lips moving silently, desperately, as if memorizing the brace position could somehow save him. A flight attendant, strapped into her jump seat, had her eyes squeezed shut, tears streaming down her cheeks. And then, the lights flickered. Not off but a dim, ominous brownout. A child wailed. And in that moment, a profound helplessness descended on me. It was a physical weight. I was a 50-year-old man. I'd prided myself on being capable. On fixing problems. I couldn't fix this. I had zero control. My knowledge, my plans, my strength, all of it was worthless. I was utterly, completely powerless. And in that vacuum of power, something rose up. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was an eruption from a place deeper than my fear. A prayer. But not the "now I lay me down to sleep" prayer. It was a raw, unfiltered, internal cry. Mother of God, please. Holy Mary, help us. I didn't say it out loud. I screamed it inside my own soul. I wasn't even a particularly devoted Marian Catholic. But in that instant she was the only figure who made sense. A mother. The mother. In the face of a furious, masculine storm, my spirit cried out for the divine feminine. For comfort. For an intercessor. For a mother's protection. I repeated it like a mantra against the chaos. Holy Mary, Mother of God, be with us now. Pray for us. Save us. With each internal repetition, something subtle began to shift. Not in the plane. The plane was still bucking like a wild horse. Not in the sounds of panic around me. But in me. A warmth started in my chest. A very specific physical sensation. It wasn't the heat of panic. It was a soft, spreading warmth, like golden honey pouring into my heart. And with it came a thought, no, not a thought, a knowing, that was so clear, it was as if a voice had spoken in the silence of my spirit. You are seen. You are not alone. The fear didn't vanish. But it was compartmentalized. Pushed to the side. In its central place was this impossible, profound peace. A peace that did not make sense. I looked at my hands again. They had relaxed. They were resting in my lap. I took a deep, shuddering breath, and for the first time since the shaking began, I smelled something other than fear and stale coffee. I smelled roses. A faint, sweet, unmistakable scent of roses. There were no flowers on that plane. I looked around, bewildered. The man reading the safety card had stopped. He was looking around too, a confused calm on his face. The wailing child had quieted to a whimper, nestling into her mother's neck. The turbulence was still raging. But the panic in the cabin, it was receding. Like a tide going out. I saw people clutching rosaries, holding hands. A young woman was simply staring ahead, a tear of what looked like relief, not fear, on her cheek. The sobbing woman ahead of me had quieted, her head resting on her husband's shoulder, his arm around her, his own breathing deeper. It was as if a blanket of quiet courage had been laid over all of us. The storm outside was no less violent. But inside we had found an eye. The mother's eye. I want to pause here. Isn't it amazing how the divine often chooses the most innocent among us, or the most desperate moments to deliver a message? A message not of doom but of hope. A message that says, I am here. If this story is already touching your heart, if it's renewing a sense of wonder in you, then do us a huge favor. Hit that like button below. It tells the YouTube algorithm that this is meaningful content, and it helps us share these stories of hope, these whispers of the miraculous, with more people who need to hear them. Now let's get back to what happened. The plane battled on for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 20 more minutes. That peace held many of us in a kind of sacred bubble. And then, slowly, the shuddering began to lessen. The drops became less severe. The gray wall outside lightened. The captain's voice came back, weary but firm. Flight attendants, you may begin cabin checks. We are through the worst of it. We'll be starting our descent into Denver shortly. The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't the silence of shock but of awe, of collective release. People looked at each other, really looked, with a new recognition. Strangers reached out and touched each other's arms. Nods were exchanged. There were no cheers. This wasn't a sports victory. This was something sacred. When we finally touched down in Denver with that solid, beautiful thump of wheels on tarmac, a soft murmur went through the cabin. Not applause but a sound of gratitude. A whispered, "Thank you, God." As we taxied, the man across the aisle from me, the one with the safety card, caught my eye. He simply said, "Someone was with us." I nodded. "A mother was," I replied. He didn't look confused. He just nodded back deeply. Getting off the plane was a surreal experience. We were all moving slowly, gently, like patients recovering from a major surgery. As I passed the flight attendant at the door, her professional mask was back on, but her eyes were red-rimmed. I stopped. "Thank you," I said. She looked at me and for a second the mask dropped. She whispered, "I felt her too." A chill, the good kind, went down my spine. In the terminal, people weren't rushing to their gates. They were hugging loved ones who'd been waiting. They were clustered in quiet groups. I saw 3 people from the flight sitting together at a bar, not drinking, just talking intently. I went to the nearest restroom, splashed water on my face and looked in the mirror. I looked the same. But I wasn't. The man who boarded that plane in Chicago was gone. In his place was someone who had touched the fabric of mercy and come back to tell about it. I missed my meeting. I didn't care. I called Sarah and told her I loved her with a depth that made her ask, "Michael, what's wrong?" I said, "Everything's right. I'll explain tonight." I called my son. He answered, surprised. "Dad? Everything okay?" "Better than okay, Ben," I said, my voice thick. "I just needed to hear your voice." That was 5 years ago. I'm 55 now. And not a single day has passed where I don't think of that flight. Not with trauma but with gratitude. It wasn't a near-death experience, it was a near-life experience. It showed me that prayer isn't a last resort. It's the first and most powerful line of communication to a reality that is constantly surrounding us, a reality of love and protection. The Virgin Mary isn't a distant statue. She is, as the early church fathers called her, the Theotokos, the God-bearer. And in our moment of terror, she bore God's peace right into the heart of that storm. I carry a rosary in my pocket now. Not as a talisman but as a tactile reminder. A reminder that when I have no control, I have a mother who does. A mother who hears the cries of her children, whether they're whispered in a quiet church or screamed in the chaos of a falling plane. My friends, the world will tell you miracles aren't real. It will tell you that what I felt was adrenaline, a coping mechanism, a coincidence. I was a practical man. I would have said the same thing. But I am here to tell you with every fiber of my being, it was real. The peace was real. The scent of roses was real. The shared, wordless experience of dozens of strangers was real. We were saved. Not just from a storm but from despair. So, if this story touched your heart, if it resonated with a knowing deep within you, then I am asking you for mine. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on that notification bell. We are building something here, a digital parish, a place of solace and shared testimony. And I want to hear from you. Write in the comments about a miracle you have witnessed or experienced, big or small. The miraculous is all around us. Let's create a living record of God's grace, of Mary's intercession, right here below this video. And finally, please share this video. Share it with someone who is afraid right now. Someone facing their own turbulence, financial, health, family, spiritual. Share it to give them hope. To remind them they are not flying alone. Handshake and friends, if you want to go deeper, to be part of a true community of support and prayer, I invite you to join our WhatsApp channel. We share daily prayers, reflections, and support each other in building a life of faith. The link is in the description below. It's a step toward building that strong community, under the mantle of Virgin Mary's blessing. You are seen. You are not alone. Whatever storm you are in, cry out from that deep place. The help that comes may not look like what you expect. It may feel like a warmth in your chest. It may smell like roses in a place with no flowers. It may sound like a perfect, piercing silence in the heart of the noise. Trust it. It is real. God bless you. And may the Mother of God hold you and all those you love in the palm of her gentle hand.